guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock, episode 63. I'm Sophie, and today my guest is Miss Jenny.
Hey.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Thank you, yes. So we just got back from a mission trip together in the Dominican Republic, and so we're just going to talk about some things we saw and experienced and learned throughout this episode. But before we start, will you share a little bit of your story, your testimony, so they can get to know you?
Absolutely. Well, when I was 7 years old, I felt the call from the Lord, and the preacher was preaching something I don't even remember, but I remember that I felt so heavy and that I needed to give my life to Christ. And so I prayed with the preacher, and I did that. I gave my life to Christ as best as I knew how as a 7-year-old.
Yes.
Now, that process since has been quite sanctifying. I obviously didn't have much at that age to repent of, but I knew that I had sinned and was dying and going to hell if I did not accept the Lord. And I wanted to. I felt His love calling me, and so I rebelled a little bit against that as I grew older, and life happened, but the Lord's never stopped wooing me back to Him.
Yeah.
He's always been there for me, and my life's been changed, for the good sake. Yes.
Yes. And now she's married to a preacher.
That's right. The Lord has a sense of humor.
Oh, goodness. So we went about a group of like 22 of us. My friend Macy, you've probably, if you listened to the podcast before, you've probably either heard of her or heard an episode with her. But she invited me to go with our church group to the Dominican Republic. And I was like, okay, sure. Got to miss a week of school. So that was kind of I was like, yeah, I'll miss a week of school. But the Lord did some really cool things when we were there. And so it was about 22 of us, and we went through the group called Mission of Hope. And it's just this organization. They say it's to following Jesus, and they exist to bring life transformation to every man, woman, and child. And so they just work with the local pastors to meet the needs of the community. And we were specifically there on a medical mission trip, even though I have no medical background. She does. But that's what was kind of cool about it. It was like some of us are medical, some of us weren't, but figured it out. We were able to help, I think, over 900 patients. And so that was crazy.
Yeah.
But they also do construction, kids camps, and many other things just to be the hands and feet of Jesus in an area that they're just trying to show Jesus to. So it was really cool to experience, and they were great to us.
That's awesome.
So we were in two cities, Jarabacoa and
Constanza.
I was like, need help with that one. So those were the two cities that we served in a couple of those days. So it was really cool. So what did the day-to-day kind of look like on the medical side of this? So people can kind of
waking up with a group of, 16 ladies was awesome. I felt like I was back in high school with my roomies. But we got up early, and we had breakfast by 7, sometimes 6:30 when we drove an hour and a half to Constanza.
Yeah.
So it started with breakfast, and it started with a lot of talk and a lot of hope. And so we ended up going to makeshift clinics, had a pharmacy we pulled out of a bunch of storage containers, and we set up in the back 3 tables. It was myself, Dr. Mark, and Matilda.
Yes.
And the dentist set up in his office and had a little helper with him. And yes, over 3 days, we saw 900 patients. So it was a group of the local pastor brought in the people, and they had heard about it. They even advertised for us coming, free medical care.
Yes.
So we were busy, obviously. And so I would come in, and the patients would come, show me their paper. Now, they didn't speak English. They were either spoke Spanish, or they spoke Creole / Haitian.
French.
So it was interesting. So our translators were invaluable to us, and were wonderful, wonderful people. So they would translate, and I would check the patient out and do the best I can. I got a lot of prayer in with them too. So it was basically more loving on them than it was fixing anything. We just really wanted to share the love of Jesus, and I felt like we were able to do that.
Yes, yeah. And so they would just come and wait, and they'd be willing to wait for a long time. I mean, we were moving as fast as they were moving as fast as they could, and they would just kind of go through and get the medicines they need and go on with their day. But it was really cool to see, and it was cool to see people have their gifts, like nurses and doctors and dentists, be able to use their gifts so directly for the gospel.
Yes.
And I think I had this like mindset going in to being like, this is medical trip. We're here to help them. And I was like, I hope we get to talk about Jesus. And we sure did. And what was really cool, I think a lot about Mission of Hope and even just the group we were with, it was so centered on Jesus. It was like, we're here to pray with these people and love on these people and be the hands and feet of Jesus. And hopefully we can give them some relief to some of their pain. But it really was cool how it was so Jesus focused. And then for the few of us that were non-medical, we got to hang out with the kids a lot. Me and Macy got our hair braided a lot, just play with them. And then
they were amazing, by the way. Absolutely amazing.
We tried.
These children who didn't speak a lick of English.
Yes, that was a challenge.
They just clung to these girls, and it was beautiful.
It was sweet. And then we got to do pharmacy half day one time, which was really cool to like, it was hard because I'm trying to go as fast as I can. But it was interesting to see what type of medicines they needed and just to see the medical need they had. And just like how blessed I am to be able to go to the doctor when I have a stomachache kind of thing. And then the last thing we would also do is S&T time, which is strategic ministry time. And we would just go door to door. And we would have a translator, and they would be like, hey, can we talk to you? And they'd be sure. They would have us just come right into their house, pull out white chairs, and we would sit down and just talk to them. So that's a little bit what it looked like more on my side of the non-medical and medical side. Okay, so what is something that you learned? I'm sure you learned a lot.
I learned so much, but I was reminded more so than normal the beauty of koinonia.
Yep.
We talked about that word on the trip and how it is only experienced through other believers.
Right.
When we really connect and work as a body.
Yeah.
And I felt like the 22 of us and our translators all connected on such a level that was like the church moving in that small area. And that was amazing to see. That was what it feels like, heaven will be like, just working as unto the Lord.
Yes.
And so I learned that you can work so hard seeing patients and actually never tire when you're working for the Lord.
Right.
At the end of the day, I could have kept going. And so that doesn't happen at home very often, but it sure did there when we knew we were doing the Lord's work.
Yeah. And that word koinonia, is just like only happens with a group of believers. And it's just where you feel so connected. But then it was hard when we came home to be like, oh, all of a sudden I'm alone. And sometimes that's why you might feel that feeling of like being on a church camp high or a mission trip high, and then it's hard to come home. Sometimes that's why. Something I learned was how cool it was to see people worshiping the same God as us in another language. We went to a Haitian church on Sunday, and her husband actually preached at it, which was so cool. Like, he would say a line, and the translator would say a line. But it was really cool to see. But during that, like, worship song singing time, we couldn't understand a single thing they were saying. Every once in a while, the translator would turn around and yell a couple words at us that what they were singing about. But I felt the Holy Spirit the most during that worship time. And I couldn't understand a single word they were saying. And they were just dancing and singing and clapping and then getting on their knees to pray. Like, it was just so cool to see how much they loved God, how they were expressing that. But they're serving the same God we're serving here in their own language. And so when God talks about every tribe, tongue, and nation and language and all these things, it was just cool to see.
It was actually lived
really
out there.
Cool.
It was amazing. And yes, it was amazing.
Yes, I know. I was like, whoa. And I also just like really saw what it was to be uncomfortable. I've always thought of it in uncomfortable situations, but like going on a trip with 22 people and I only knew 20 of them going into it. I had met her one time briefly, and obviously I had Macy and these 2 other people that I knew, and that was all. And so I had to get comfortable really fast. But the first day we were there, I was like, yay. But it was just cool to see what it looked like to be uncomfortable for the sake of the gospel, and how God worked in that.
I think we all felt a certain level of uncomfortableness being in a different country.
Yes.
And, we go to church together. I do with a lot of these girls and guys, and I'm not connected on this level. Right. You when you're in the trenches together, you really connect in a different way that only serving the Lord can kind of get you there.
Yes, I agree. yeah, it was really cool to see like how our group came together,
Mm-hmm.
and our translators were so amazing.
Oh, they were.
Like they were so funny and kind and so good at their job
They
and
were.
working with such like joy and yeah, let's help these people. Like we probably seemed dumb and innocent and like all these like what are we talking about? But they were so
They
gracious.
were very patient with us,
Yes.
and a lot of them had come from absolutely nothing,
Right.
had been through devastating childhoods,
Right.
and were overcomers. And it was
Yes.
amazing to hear their stories. They were a
Yes.
testament and an inspiration for
Right.
us as well.
Yes. Yeah, and to see like, I mean, this one guy that we just like ended up getting close with, he translated for us a lot with the kids, and his story would just like make me want to cry every time he told it. But then to see how he still loves the Lord and still going, and I'm like, you know, we give up Jesus so easily, but they weren't even willing to. So that really was so cool. So what is something that you want to live out here now after you experienced that?
Well, I would like that same sustained energy in serving.
Yes, yes.
But praying with those patients, I felt like was the most important part of my job. And while I'm able to pray for some of my patients now, it's not quite as a given that you're going to when you're serving in a church. But one of my goals is to keep that going, to just keep praying for my patients. And offering them the real solution to their problems, which is Jesus. That was just one of the 1,000 things that I want to bring home. But that same fire for the Lord, I want everyone to continue that. And
I agree. I had two things, was just that, just being willing to like stop and pray. Like, hey, this is something hard. Okay, can we pray that right now? Instead of being like, I'm going to pray about that for you. And I might really go home and pray about that. But just the power of being like, let's pray right now.
Today is the day.
And so just being willing to pray with people, and also just you don't need stuff to bring you joy.
No, absolutely.
And sometimes I'm like, let me start giving stuff away. I don't need some of this stuff. And stuff doesn't bring us joy, and it really is only temporary. And it's not going to go with us.
So I have a quick story about that.
Yeah.
I had to go all the way to the Dominican Republic to lose the diamond out of my engagement ring. So that happened on the next to last day we were there. And after serving all week, I was upset that I had lost it. But my eyes turned towards the hope.
Hope on our shores.
that someone who really needed it would find that diamond and be able to feed their family for a long time. I pray that that doesn't go in vain, that it does get found and someone is able to use it, and I can get another diamond. But that would have upset me if I had been in today's
for sure
mindset. But it was good to see that you can let something so important go and realize I can get another one. Somebody else might be blessed by it. So.
That's so good, and that's such a good mindset to have. And it is interesting how I had to get taken out of my comfortable lifestyle and be like, oh look, because I remember when you guys were like, we need somebody had lost their wallet and somebody lost the diamond, and we were either praying for it to be found, but how like content you were, you know what I'm trying to say, like
I was not near as upset as I should have been had my mindset been back
here. If that would happen here, it would have been like a panic attack, not only for you but anybody. But for some reason being there, just being like, people are willing to wait hours to get a little bit of medicine. It'll be all right. You know? So that was just
first world problems.
Yes. Okay.
And insurance makes me feel a little better.
Insurance helps. Thank you, insurance. Okay, what is something that you experienced on the medical side that you would like to share? Maybe a story or a patient or anything.
Well, there was a lady I had that had several children, and she was alone. A lot of these women, their men had left them, or for whatever reason weren't with them anymore, and they had to raise these children alone. So the strength in that was just amazing to see them do that. But I remember in particular praying for a woman who I felt so sorry for. And that lady, when we were done, turned around and she said in her language, can I please pray for you? And she blessed me, and she prayed the Lord would continue to use me, and she prayed for my ministry and healing others. And I was so blown away by that. That was one of the many amazing appointments the Lord had for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't really have that medical side, but something I learned from the kids was I had the first 2 days we were in Constanza.
Either one.
Okay. So that place, that city, the kids it was more Dominican Republic kids,
Mhm.
children from the Dominican. And they were very content, but they were more standoffish.
Right.
So they would carefully color with us and, hug us and want to play with us, throw the ball a little bit. But they were very content, not a lot of smiles, not a lot of laughing. But they really were. They were just content. They were happily to color with us. The parents were happy to give us their kids. I mean, we had this one mom who I think just was hanging out, which was totally fine. We were happy to hang out with her baby, but she was there a really long time. But in Jarabacoa, I don't really know what was different about it, but there was a lot more Haitian people there.
A lot of refugees.
A lot of refugees. And we had this little girl who came up to us, and she started giggling immediately. And we did have some more toys for them to play with, but she was just giggling, and it was contagious. Like, we were so happy. We were just like hugging her, and she had these little sunglasses on, and we were taking a photo with her, and she put her sunglasses on for the photo, and she was just so proud of them, and she was just giggling and laughing, and it was just like the contagiousness, and also how much do you have? Is she a refugee? I don't know, but she's still joyful. And then another little girl, and she was just sitting there, and her dress was so cute, and so I went up to her and was like, said, "I like your dress," with the help of my translator, and she just kind of turned around and I picked her up, and we just started dancing, and there's no music playing until Miss Renee saw, and she turned on some music for us. But we were dancing without music for probably 30 minutes, and she would just laugh, and we would spin, and we didn't say a single word to each other because we couldn't. But we were just smiling and laughing, and it was just
joy.
Sweet. Yes, and just the joy of just dance, just laugh. Don't take life so seriously.
Right.
And sometimes, yes, we need to use our words a lot. The actions are really important also. And so I think I just saw that of like, we have to be saying the gospel with our mouths, but we also have to be showing it. And for this little girl, the only thing I could do was hug her and dance with her and show it. So that's something I learned. Okay, and then SMT, we talked about that a little bit at the beginning, just this strategic ministry time, just going door to door. And so what is something that you experienced? You only got to do it one day since you're a doctor.
I got to do it one day, and I was so happy, though, to see y'all go do it. And the joy y'all brought back with you after the things you'd seen and witnessed really spoke to me in volumes. But the day that I got to go, I was actually serenaded by a guy with his guitar. That was cool. We had to coax him to sing actually a Christian song because we weren't sure what he was singing about. So, but we got welcomed no matter where we went. The people were so awesome, just so hospitable, and they told us that they took care of everyone around them, that no one there would ever go hungry because your neighbor would look after you. And I saw that, and I was taken to see several really, I guess we would call them invalids, where they couldn't walk. The lady couldn't see. One lady was 96, but her daughter took care of her, and the neighbor had brought us to her house, and everyone was caring. It's like taking care of, like saying it takes a village to raise a kid, but it was like that with everyone. Literally, and it was so inspirational to see just how we're not always like that in America. And it really challenges me to open my home up and be willing to just be open to visitors.
Right. Yes, I know. That really was so interesting. Like I think I went out every day except one, and I would just go for half a day, but I only had one person say no.
Yeah.
Every single door that got open for us, they would have us come in except one. And so that was like crazy to me.
And they would offer you food.
What? Yes.
And you had to eat it.
Yes, they would give me food. I'm like, no, we don't need your food. Like, you eat your food.
No, but that was their way of showing love.
Yes, they wanted to give it to us. I have a couple instances, but it was really powerful to come at night and debrief with our team and hear some of their stories. And some people were like giving their lives to Jesus. And it wasn't like, okay, good luck, goodbye. They would connect them with a local pastor, which was really cool. And something Mission of Hope really was like local pastor. Right. And so when they would give their life to Jesus, we'd be like, and this is the local pastor. This is how you can go to church so that they can grow that relationship and connect. Yes. And so there's this one house that we went to. I think it was Bobby, Macy, Robbie, and David, the interpreter, I think. And we were sitting in this house with these like a couple girls and their mom who is very elderly, and then they had some kids between them. It was like sisters and their kids were just running around and having fun. And they eventually warmed up to me and Macy. We got our hair done again. But we sat in this house for 2 hours, and we were just asking like intentional questions of like, what's your family like? What do you like to do? But then we also were like, do you know who Jesus is? What do you think about Jesus? Do you go to church? Just asking them questions like that. And we prayed with them, and we were there for 2 hours and just hung out, and it was so cool to see how they welcomed us in. And then that one of the girls there, she sang a song in English. She really wanted to learn English because she wanted to go to school and learn English, and so she had taken one English course, and the final assignment was to sing a whole song in English.
Wow.
And so me and Macy got to sing it with her because we knew it. And so it was just kind of cool to,
awesome.
She was so excited. And then I'll share one more story. It was on the last day, and it was the one that like got me the most, I think. It was just this man was sitting on the side of like the road, and he had clearly been drinking for a very long time. Like it wasn't like he started 30 minutes ago. He had probably been drinking for hours at this point, and we were watching him just chugging. And somebody was like, "No, we're not going to stop there." And we're like, "Wait, why would we not stop and pray with this guy?" And so he got up, and we started talking to him and asked him if we could pray for him. And he was very happy to talk to us. And as we were starting to talk to him, somebody rode by on their motorcycle, and it was like, "He's a thief," in Spanish, and the translator told us. And so we were like aware of that, but we just kept talking to him because Jesus didn't just come for the perfect. And all sin is a sin. And so let's talk to him. And so we were talking with him and praying with him. And Mignon started praying, and she was saying that, like, "Lord, thank you that you came for the thief. And thank you that you came for the alcoholic. And thank you for these things." And it was just really cool. That's awesome. Even though I don't
chill bumps now.
But yes, I know, me too. I don't know what he'll remember from that conversation. But he'll remember something about it. I just know because
prayer doesn't return void.
No, it doesn't. And once we stopped praying, he just started talking to us. It was almost like he was just like, "Yeah, okay, here you go." And we're like, wow. And his friend walked up to us afterwards who spoke English, which was kind of funny because if anyone spoke English, we were like, "What?" And he was like, he's been wanting to accept Jesus into his heart. Oh, wow. But he hasn't because every time he starts coming to it, he just drinks so much he forgets. Oh. And so it was just heartbreaking, but it was just so encouraging that he happened to, and then he also had been in a motorcycle crash earlier that day, but that doesn't really have much to do with it. But
I could have woke him up.
But he just happened to be sitting there, and we happened to stumble across him and be like, we need to pray for him.
I guess that probably was a Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I think so. It was not on accident.
No, that was a divine appointment.
A lot of things were not on accident. And the most heartbreaking things probably were just the refugees. We met a young girl who did end up giving her life to Jesus, but she was in an abusive situation here in the Dominican, and her 3-year-old daughter's in Haiti, and she can't get to her right now because the borders are closed. And so there was just like heartbreaking stuff like that. But she just grabbed me and Macy's hand one day. We just held hands and walked her back to her house, and she was so willing to hold our hands, even though, I mean, can't imagine one being abused by the person in your household, and also longing for your daughter who's in. You can't even get to her.
And after, remember how closed off that lady was to talking about anything? And after she accepted Jesus, she was a different person.
It was. I wish I would have got to see her like the day before.
I'm telling you what the girls told me, and they said that she did a life. Well, God did transform her life, but it literally was night and day, they said.
I mean, so what we heard was just how she was looked afraid. She still probably was afraid for certain things, but she looked closed off. But I just remember the day, and she opened the door and ran to Bobby and had her arms wrapped around her. And I saw that, and I was like, oh my gracious. Like, the joy of the Lord is in her. Amen. And trusting these people, and just, I don't know, it's just so cool. So, do you have any last thoughts? Anything else you want to share?
I feel so blessed to have got. Aren't you glad you said yes to this?
So glad.
It's really life-changing in so
Mhm.
many ways to
Yeah.
see God working.
Mhm.
And when you're willing to go and serve Him, He will sustain you. He will equip you.
Yes.
He will give you the strength and wisdom. He will
So
make the
true.
appointments for you.
Yeah, it's just one yes.
You just have to say yes.
Yeah. And sometimes that yes is a small yes, and sometimes that yes is a big yes. And so maybe this yes for you is to talk to the person who sits behind you in school, or to talk to your coworker, or maybe your yes is to go across the world,
Yeah.
or I don't even know, whatever that looks
Maybe
like.
it's your yes to Jesus.
Yes, or your yes to Jesus for the first time, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so I just think that's so cool, and how not one yes, God's not going to use it in the wrong way at all. He's going to use one little yes at a time to grow His kingdom, which is our goal. So it was really special for me to go on that trip and just see there was a lot of couples on the trip, so it was really cool to see such sweet like marriages, and how like y'all served each other and we're serving together, which was really cool. It was sweet to serve with my friends, and we got to do that together. And I gained a grandma this trip, so that was fun.
Lots
and
of
so
aunts.
I have a lot of aunts now.
Just want to say Sophie's
so
awesome.
Oh,
To see this girl blossom it was amazing. Lord's really using her, so I'm so thankful that you're doing this podcast and sharing Jesus with others the way you are. You're a great inspiration, even those old ladies.
Well, I appreciate it. But it was so cool, and cool to see God work. And so that's all. And thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.